It started like any other quiet rotation in the outer sectors of the Empire. The patrol team sat inside their massive ships, half bored, half alert, watching empty space roll by. They were used to silence, long hours of nothing but blinking lights and soft machine hums. Out there, far from the heart of civilization, you didn't expect surprises. But that night something happened that no one could explain. A signal appeared. At first, it looked like a small error, a flicker on the scanners, something the crew thought was just another glitch from the old detection system. It showed for less than 2 seconds, then vanished completely. Usually that would be the end of it. But this time the system logged the reading automatically. When the technician pulled the data report, he froze. The coordinates showed something massive. Not an asteroid, not debris, but a moving object. The energy reading was far beyond anything recorded before. The technician thought it was a mistake. He ran the check again. The signal came back, faint but clear. Then it vanished. That was enough to raise alarms. The officer in charge ordered a full sweep of the sector. The surrounding ships turned their scanners toward the same spot, and one by one they too picked up fragments of that mysterious signal. It wasn't just one ship's glitch, it was real. Something enormous was out there. Within minutes, the Empire's Central Command was notified. A coded message was sent across deep space. The message was short and urgent. Unknown vessel detected. Location confirmed. Awaiting instructions. Inside the command chamber, the mood shifted from routine calm to uneasy curiosity. The Empire was proud of its control. Every ship, every asteroid belt, every trade route, everything was monitored. Nothing could appear in their territory without being recorded. For something to slip past their sensors meant only one thing. This wasn't ordinary. A special order was given to the nearest recon team. Their mission was simple: locate, identify, and record whatever was producing that signal. No engagement, no firepower, just quiet observation. The team's ship left the station within minutes, gliding through dark space. The stars outside looked calm, but everyone inside felt the tension. There was a strange silence that filled the cabin. Even the machines seemed quieter than usual. As they neared the coordinates, the scanners came alive again. The same energy reading flashed across their displays. The crew leaned closer. The signal was strong now, like something massive was right in front of them, but their eyes saw nothing. No light, no shape, just a black emptiness. Try visual mode, the officer ordered. The external cameras adjusted, focusing on the dark stretch ahead. Still nothing. The ship's lights cut through the emptiness, but it was like shining a torch into a bottomless pit. The beam just stopped. Then, without warning, the ship's sensors spiked. The reading was off the charts. The crew gasped. The data suggested that whatever was out there was the size of a small moon. But how could something so big be invisible? Suddenly, the light from their ship flickered. The control panels dimmed, and a cold vibration ran through the floor. The crew stared at each other, frozen. Then the signal vanished again. Just gone, like it had never existed. For a moment, no one spoke. The silence was heavier than before. The officer ordered a systems check. Everything came back normal. Power was stable. Engines fine. Scanners clear. It was like nothing had happened at all. But the data logs told a different story. They showed energy fluctuations unlike anything human-made. The readings didn't match any known vessel design or engine signature. The officer sent the information back to command, marking it as unidentified possible threat. Back at Central Command, analysts studied the report through the night. They replayed the data hundreds of times, running simulations, cross-checking against every ship in known space. The results were the same, and this wasn't from the Empire. It wasn't from any colony or known civilization. Some believed it was an unknown natural phenomenon, maybe a new kind of cosmic radiation or energy burst. Others whispered that it could be something else. Something alive. But before any theory could take shape, another report came in. A second ship, positioned thousands of miles away, had detected the same signal. Same energy pattern, same disappearance. That's when command realized it wasn't a glitch. It was moving. Over the next few days, the mysterious signal appeared in several distant sectors. Each time it was there for seconds, then gone. No visuals. No communication. It moved in a path that didn't make sense, not in a straight line but in jumps, as if it could slip through space itself. The Empire launched a larger investigation. Military ships were sent to multiple coordinates, forming a perimeter across the outer rim. They were determined to catch whatever this was, to prove that the Empire was still in control. But deep down, many of them felt uneasy. When soldiers and pilots talked among themselves, they described the feeling the same way. It's like it's watching us. Even when there was nothing on the screen, they swore they could feel it, like being stared at through the darkness. In one recorded log, a crew member said softly, "It's not just hiding, it's choosing when to be seen." That line was later deleted from the official record. Then came the first disappearance. A small scout ship, sent to track the signal more closely, reported getting a visual lock for the first time. The pilot's last words before transmission cut were, "It's huge. It's right here." The signal died mid-sentence. No wreckage was ever found. No escape pods, no debris. The ship simply never came back. The Empire marked it as lost during deep space patrol. But among the fleet, everyone knew that wasn't the truth. Something had taken it. After that, command grew silent about the mission. Orders were changed. Reports were locked. Only high-ranking officers had access to the data. For ordinary soldiers, the official story became simple. Routine anomaly. Nothing to worry about. But people kept talking. They said that sometimes, when you looked into certain sectors of deep space, you could see flickers, tiny flashes of light that looked like reflections on metal. If you stared too long, your scanners would short out. Some claimed to have heard faint sounds in the static, strange pulses that almost sounded like a voice. One technician who worked the night shift said, "It wasn't random noise. It felt like someone whispering through the static, asking where we came from." That recording, too, disappeared from the archives. Weeks passed, and the mystery only deepened. Scientists proposed theories about energy distortions or gravity fields. Military officials blamed pirates using advanced cloaking tech. But the truth was, no one could explain how a vessel that large could appear and vanish without trace. As time went on, the sightings became rarer. The Empire believed it had moved on. They called it a ghost signal and treated it like an old myth. But those who had seen the readings firsthand knew better. They knew it wasn't gone. It was waiting, watching. In the dark edges of the Empire's borders, where no patrols dared to go anymore, rumors said you could still find the traces, faint cold echoes in the data streams. Pilots who wandered too close said their lights dimmed. Their engines slowed, and for a split second, they felt the air grow heavy, as if space itself was holding its breath. Then everything would go back to normal, as if nothing had happened. No one ever proved what it was. No one ever found the ship. But in quiet conversations, old officers would lean in and whisper, "The first time it appeared, we thought it was a mistake. But it was testing us. It wanted us to see it. And when it knew we were afraid, it vanished. That was the beginning." The first time the Empire realized that maybe they weren't the only power watching the stars. Something else was out there. Something far beyond their understanding. And the worst part? It hadn't even begun yet. After that first strange encounter, the Empire tried to act like nothing had happened. Official reports called it an unidentified energy disturbance, as something small and unimportant. But deep inside the fleet, no one believed that story anymore. Too many ships had seen that flicker, that strange ghost signal in the dark. Too many people had felt that uneasy silence that followed it. Still, the Empire could not allow fear to spread. So they sent out another recon mission, a larger one this time. 5 ships, all equipped with the most advanced scanners available, were ordered to explore the area where the last signal was detected. Their orders were clear: observe, record, and return. No engagement. No experiments. As the fleet reached the coordinates, space looked calm, too calm. The stars shone the same as always, but something about the emptiness felt wrong. The officers on board felt it too. It wasn't just the quiet. It was the kind of quiet that made you feel watched. Every little sound, the hum of the engine, the clicks of the controls, and felt louder than it should. One of the ships picked up something faint. It was the same energy reading as before, but weaker, as if whatever was out there was trying not to be seen. The commander ordered a slow approach. The ships moved together, forming a wide circle around the signal point. At first, nothing happened. Then the signal jumped, not far, just a few kilometers to the left. The scanners followed. It jumped again, now behind them. It was moving. The crew on one of the smaller ships tried to scan deeper. Their equipment buzzed, the lights flickered, and suddenly the readings froze. For a split second, the entire crew saw something on their screens, a massive outline larger than any known ship. It looked like a shape made of shadows moving in and out of sight. Then the image blinked away and the screen went dark. The operator shouted that they had lost visual. The ship's communication went static for a few seconds, then returned. The crew was shaken. No one spoke for a moment. When the signal came back online, they realized something chilling. The shadowy shape was gone, but their ship had drifted hundreds of meters off course. As if pushed by something unseen, they tried to explain it away, and a power surge, a gravity anomaly, maybe an error in the navigation system, but everyone knew it wasn't. They had all felt that strange pressure in the air, the sense that something had brushed past them, something they couldn't see or touch. Back at Central Command, the live feed from the recon ships played across giant screens. Scientists and officers watched closely as the crew tried to make sense of what was happening. When the video feed glitched and the shadow appeared, the room fell completely silent. "What is that?" someone whispered. No one had an answer. The analysis team zoomed in on the brief frame where the shadow had appeared. It looked like metal, but not any metal they knew. The edges were too smooth, too perfect. It reflected no light. The image gave the impression of something ancient, maybe even broken, but still alive in some way. A meeting was held immediately after the broadcast ended. The highest-ranking officials gathered in a quiet chamber, deep within the Imperial base. No recordings, no transcripts, only silence and whispers. Some believed it could be a new type of cloaked vessel from an enemy civilization. Others thought it was a natural phenomenon. But a few weren't so sure. One older officer, who had served for decades, looked at the still image again and said softly, "That's not a ship. It's something else." His words were ignored in the official record, but they stayed in everyone's mind. Meanwhile, the recon fleet was ordered to continue their search. They didn't know that the Empire was already preparing a cover story, just in case they didn't come back. Hours later, while drifting through the sector, one of the ships sent an urgent transmission. "Energy spike detected," the message read. The other vessels turned toward their location. But when they arrived, the ship was gone. Completely gone. There was no explosion, no debris, no distress signal. It had just disappeared from existence, as if it had never been there. The remaining ships searched desperately. Their scanners picked up faint echoes. The same strange signal, but it was now weaker and moving away fast. They followed it for hours through asteroid fields and empty space until finally the reading faded. They had lost it. When they returned to the base, only 4 ships out of 5 remained. Command ordered silence. The official report said the missing ship had suffered a critical system failure and was lost during patrol. But the surviving crews told a different story in private. They said that before the ship vanished, their sensors had detected something right behind them. A sudden surge of energy so strong it caused every light to flicker. Then everything went dark. One crew member described it best. It was like space itself folded, and the ship just fell through it. Those words spread quietly through the fleet. Soon people began calling it the Specter. The name came from a joke at first, a nervous laugh among technicians who were too afraid to talk seriously. But the name stuck. The Specter became a legend, whispered in corridors and night shifts. Some officers said it was an old experiment gone wrong, a secret ship that had vanished years ago and somehow returned. Others thought it might be alien, a ghost from another world that had wandered too close. But the strangest thing was this. The signal didn't appear anywhere else for weeks after that. It was as if the thing had simply vanished again. Some believed it had gone back to wherever it came from. Others thought it was waiting. During that time, something odd began happening with the long-range sensors across the Empire. Every few nights, random static waves would appear on the screens. No pattern, no origin, just strange pulses of sound. When engineers tried to decode them, they found faint rhythms, not random noise, but something that almost resembled a pattern, like a heartbeat. Those who listened closely said it felt like the pulse was responding to their own signals, like an echo that understood it was being watched. The Empire grew restless. They couldn't ignore it anymore. A new order was issued, classified at the highest level. A fleet of heavy warships would be sent to the sector, armed with everything the Empire had. If the Specter was still out there, they would find it and destroy it. But not everyone agreed. Some scientists argued against the plan, saying they didn't understand what they were dealing with. One of them reportedly said, "You don't attack what you don't understand. You ask why it's there." His warning was ignored. In the weeks that followed, the Empire began quietly preparing for battle. Ships were refueled, weapons loaded, communication lines encrypted. Every movement was hidden from the public. Only those directly involved knew what was coming, but the strange part was, and the Specter seemed to know too. Days before the fleet's launch, strange readings began showing up near the Empire's own communication hubs. The same energy signature, but now closer, almost inside their borders. It was as if the unknown vessel had crossed into their territory deliberately, just to prove it could. Security teams went on high alert. All transmissions were monitored. Every night the same question echoed through the command rooms. Why here? Why now? No one had the answer. On the day the fleet was set to deploy, something unexpected happened. All across the monitoring network, the Specter's signal appeared again, strong and clear. But this time it didn't move. It stayed still, right outside the Empire's central line. The commanders were certain this was their chance. They gave the order to launch immediately. The fleet moved toward the coordinates, ready for confrontation. But when they arrived, the signal was gone. No trace, no sign, no explanation. The scanners showed nothing. Yet every crew member felt the same strange chill. The stars looked dimmer and the space around them seemed thicker, as if reality itself was holding its breath. Then, a sudden surge hit every ship at once. The lights flickered, systems glitched, and for just a heartbeat, the same shadow appeared across all their screens, larger, darker and closer than before, and just as quickly, it vanished. After that day, the Empire declared the sector restricted. No one was allowed to travel there again. The official statement said the area was unstable, unsafe for navigation. But everyone who had been there knew the truth. They knew something had appeared, something intelligent, something that wasn't supposed to exist, and it was still out there and watching, waiting, choosing when to return. That was the moment the Empire realized that the ghost ship wasn't an accident of space or a lost experiment. It was something else entirely, something that had come with a purpose. And the scariest part? It hadn't even spoken yet. After the Empire restricted that entire sector, people thought things would calm down. But silence didn't bring peace. It only made the mystery worse. No one liked talking about it openly, but every officer and worker in the fleet had heard the same stories. Whispers about the missing ships, the strange readings, the shadow that appeared and vanished like it was alive. The Empire tried to bury it all. They erased logs, locked reports, and even transferred crews who had seen too much. But in the quiet hours, when the ships drifted between stars and the only sound was the low hum of the engines, the whispers returned. They called it the Specter, and by now, that name had spread across every rank, from pilots to engineers. People said if you traveled too far into the dark, if your scanners ever caught a signal that didn't match anything known, you were better off turning around. Some said it was an alien ship. Others said it was something older, something that had been in the void long before the Empire existed. But the most chilling theory was that it wasn't a ship at all. It was a being, something that moved between space and time, something that could decide when it wanted to be seen. Inside one of the Empire's science stations, a group of researchers was still trying to solve the mystery. They weren't allowed to say the word Specter out loud anymore. It was officially banned, but everyone knew what they were studying. They had fragments of data from the lost recon ships, bits of strange energy readings, and short bursts of static that didn't behave like normal noise. One of the technicians noticed something strange about the static. It wasn't random. The pattern repeated every few minutes, always in the same rhythm. He amplified the signal, filtered it, and turned it into sound. What came out made everyone in the room stop. It wasn't just noise. It sounded almost like breathing. Slow and deep, the room went completely quiet. Nobody spoke for a long time. When they sent the file to higher command, it disappeared from the system a few hours later. The technician who found it was reassigned to another station, and the rest were told to move on to new projects. But the breathing never really left their minds. In the following weeks, Small incidents started happening in remote outposts. Patrol ships would lose power for a few seconds. Stations would pick up ghost signals in areas that were supposed to be empty. Sometimes the systems would even show reflections, shapes that looked like other ships, hovering nearby, but when cameras turned to look, there was nothing there. And every time one of these strange readings appeared, someone in the command room would whisper the same thing. It's back. The Empire's leadership grew more anxious. They knew something was happening, but they didn't understand it. The military wanted to attack, to hunt it down and prove that it was just another enemy. But the scientists argued that it wasn't that simple. They said whatever this thing was, it didn't behave like any known form of life or technology. Then, a strange pattern began to emerge. The ghost signal only appeared near old war zones, places where the Empire had fought years ago and destroyed countless ships. Places that were filled with broken metal and dead silence. It was as if the Specter was drawn to the remains of battles, to the echoes of destruction. One night, an old cargo pilot was crossing one of those abandoned sectors when he saw something in the distance. At first, he thought it was just debris reflecting starlight, but as he got closer, the lights around his ship dimmed. His control panel flickered, and then in front of him space seemed to twist. He described it later as seeing a shadow turn into shape. It wasn't glowing or bright. It was darker than the void around it, yet somehow visible, like the space itself bent around it. It didn't move fast or make any sound. It just hovered there watching him. Then his ship's systems died completely. Everything shut off, power, lights, oxygen. For a few seconds he floated there in total silence, staring at the thing. Then his systems came back on and the shadow was gone. He made it back alive, barely. When he reported what he saw, the Empire dismissed it as fatigue and light distortion. But his data logs showed the same strange energy readings. They matched the pattern from the missing recon ships exactly. That report too disappeared from the official record. But deep inside the Empire, people were beginning to talk again. The Specter wasn't gone. It was coming closer, each appearance bringing it deeper into Imperial territory. In one of the council meetings, a nervous officer said something that made everyone uncomfortable. "It's not attacking us," he said. "It's studying us." The room fell silent, because no one could deny that possibility. If the Specter had wanted to destroy them, it could have. It had the power to disrupt massive ships, to vanish entire fleets without leaving debris. But it hadn't. It only appeared, watched, and left, almost as if it was waiting for something. Weeks later, a small listening post at the edge of the Empire received a transmission. It was faint, distorted, and almost impossible to decode. But when the engineers managed to clean the signal, it sent chills down their spines. It was a voice. It didn't speak in any known language, but the rhythm, the tone, it sounded intentional, almost human. Some said it was a message. Others said it was a warning. The post sent the recording to command, and within hours they received orders to delete everything and keep silent. But one of the workers saved a copy. He later told others what he heard. He said the voice didn't sound angry. It sounded sad. After that, strange things began happening near the central systems. Navigation routes failed. Power systems and major stations would flicker without reason. Ships reported being followed by dark shapes that vanished when approached. People began to wonder if the Specter was trying to tell them something. Meanwhile, the Empire kept growing restless. Their leaders didn't like things they couldn't control. The more they tried to hide the truth, the more the fear spread. Inside the ships, the crews started making small rituals before long journeys, small gestures for good luck, like touching the control panel or whispering a few words before launch. They weren't supposed to believe in superstitions, but after what had happened, everyone wanted a bit of comfort. Then, a strange discovery changed everything. A group of engineers found an old recording buried deep in the archives, something from decades ago, before most of the current officers were even born. It was a transmission from an early exploration mission, long before the Empire had expanded so far. The report described an encounter with a massive invisible structure that caused instruments to fail. The last line of the message read, "We have seen something out here. Something that should not exist." The coordinates of that ancient sighting were almost the same as the location where the Specter had first appeared. That realization hit everyone hard. The Empire hadn't discovered the Specter. They had simply stumbled into its space again. It had been there all along, and now, After decades of silence, it had noticed them again. The Empire tried one last time to ignore it, to act like it was nothing. But strange things kept happening. Navigation systems would show false coordinates. Ships would drift off course without reason, and communication lines would fill with strange static patterns that formed brief, repeating pulses. Some said those pulses were coordinates. Others believed they were words. Whatever it was trying to communicate, but no one knew what it wanted. As days passed, more and more people began to question the Empire's silence. Why hide something so important? Why not tell the truth? The officials said it was for safety, to prevent panic. But the soldiers and workers who had seen the Specter knew better. It wasn't panic they were avoiding. It was accountability, because deep down everyone suspected one thing: the Specter wasn't here by accident. It had come for a reason, and whatever that reason was, the Empire didn't want the rest of the galaxy to find out. It wasn't a myth anymore. It wasn't a story whispered in dark rooms. The Specter was real, and it was getting closer. That was the moment people realized something terrifying. They weren't just looking at an unknown ship. They were part of its experiment. The question now was not whether the Specter existed, but what it wanted from them. The more the Empire tried to hide the truth, the louder the silence became. People in the fleet had stopped asking questions out loud, but the fear showed in their faces. Every officer, every engineer, every pilot carried that same quiet tension, the kind that made you look over your shoulder even when you were alone. Rumors spread faster than official reports. Some said the Specter had already entered the Empire's main territories. Others claimed it could move through solid matter, appearing anywhere it wanted. Most people didn't believe those stories, but they still checked the scanner screens a little more often, just in case. At Central Command, the leaders finally agreed on one thing. They couldn't keep pretending nothing was happening. Too many systems were reporting strange power surges, ships losing direction, stations hearing ghost signals. The pattern was growing, and what scared them most was that the signals were getting closer to the Empire's core planets. A meeting was called, one that only the highest officials could attend. Inside a dim, quiet hall, holograms of the Empire's most powerful officers appeared around a circular table. They watched a live display showing the recent sightings, small glowing dots across the map of space. Each dot represented a moment the Specter's signal had appeared. It wasn't random anymore. The dots formed a slow, deliberate curve, almost like a path. One of the analysts zoomed in and drew a line through the coordinates. The pattern pointed directly toward the Empire's capital system. A heavy silence filled the room. No one wanted to say it out loud, but they all understood what it meant. The Specter wasn't wandering anymore. It was coming for them. The Emperor's Council immediately ordered Operation Phantom Net. It was the largest mobilization of ships the Empire had ever launched. Entire fleets were pulled from distant sectors. Space stations were turned into outposts. Thousands of soldiers were told they were part of a secret defense line against an unknown threat. But no one could define what that threat really was. The official explanation said it was an unidentified enemy fleet, maybe rebels or foreign invaders using new technology, but the crews who had seen the ghost signals knew better. They had seen how it moved, how it appeared, vanished, and reappeared miles away in seconds. No living pilot could do that. No known engine could produce those kinds of readings. The operation began quietly. Fleets spread across the outer systems, using advanced scanners to detect even the faintest sign of the unknown vessel. For days, nothing happened. The officers began to relax, convincing themselves it was just a mistake. Maybe a glitch in their detection software. Then one night, it returned. A small defense ship near the edge of the operation zone was the first to see it. The crew reported a sudden drop in temperature, followed by a flicker in the power system. Their scanners lit up with unreadable signals, shapes and numbers that made no sense. The radar spun uncontrollably. Then, through the window of the ship, someone saw it. A shadow. It wasn't glowing or shining like normal metal. It was darker than the space around it, like a moving hole in the stars. It stayed still for a moment, almost peaceful, before vanishing again in total silence. The entire fleet went on alert. Command ordered every ship in that sector to move in. They locked their weapons, ready to engage. Dozens of massive battleships surrounded the area. Scanners focused, Systems pulsed with energy, and then without warning every system went offline. All the ships, hundreds of them, lost power at the same time. Lights died, engines stopped, and communications went silent. The only thing left was darkness and the quiet hum of life support. From inside the control rooms, officers looked at their screens, which now showed only static. Some said they could feel something, a deep vibration like the sound of distant thunder coming from somewhere outside. Then, just as suddenly as it started, the systems came back. The power returned, lights flickered on, and scanners rebooted. But when the crews looked at the radar again, half of the ships were gone. No explosions. No distress calls. No debris floating in space. Just gone. Command refused to believe it at first. They thought it was a malfunction, maybe a communication blackout. But when smaller search teams went to the coordinates, they found nothing. Empty space. No signs of battle. The Empire had lost hundreds of ships and not a single trace remained. After that, everything changed. The fear that had lived quietly in the background now spread like wildfire. Some crews refused to fly. Some stations went completely silent. People started saying the Specter wasn't attacking. It was collecting. Nobody knew what that meant, but the word spread quickly. For the first time in its history, the Empire looked fragile. The system that had once seemed unbreakable was now filled with cracks. People began to question their leaders. Why were they hiding the truth? Why were they losing so many lives without any explanation? But the leaders had no answers to give. They were just as afraid. In desperation, the Emperor himself gave a final command. Bring it down. He ordered the use of forbidden weapons, massive energy cannons that had never been fired outside of testing. They were powerful enough to vaporize a small moon. The plan was simple. Lure the Specter into a trap, surround it, and destroy it in one coordinated strike. The fleet was assembled again, this time even larger than before. Thousands of ships formed a wall across the edge of the system. Every weapon was armed. Every pilot was told this would be the battle that decided the future of the Empire. For hours they waited. Nothing happened. Then a signal appeared, faint but familiar. The Specter was here. It appeared in the center of the fleet, as if it had known exactly where they were waiting. Alarms screamed across every ship. Cannons charged. The commanders gave the order to fire, but nothing happened. The weapons didn't respond. The power levels stayed frozen. The targeting systems went blank. Even the control panels wouldn't light up. It was as if the entire fleet had been turned off by an invisible hand. In that silence, the Specter began to move. Slowly, it drifted across the formation of ships. Some officers stared at it through the viewing windows. They said it didn't look like a machine anymore. It looked alive, not in a biological way, but in a way that made space itself bend and shimmer around it. And then, every screen in the fleet turned white. For a single second, an image appeared, a symbol that no one could understand. It wasn't from any known language, but it felt ancient, powerful, and somehow familiar. Then just as suddenly the light vanished and the Specter disappeared. The ships regained power, but it was too late. When they counted the numbers, they realized dozens more vessels were missing. No one knew how it had done it. No one even knew where it had gone. But everyone agreed on one thing, and the Specter wasn't a ghost or a simple ship. It was something far greater. Some said it was the universe's way of correcting a mistake. Others said it was a warning. Back on the capital planet, the Emperor refused to speak to the public. The council argued about what to do next, but no one had any real answers. The people began losing faith. Then something strange happened. For the first time, the Specter sent a message that every communication system in the Empire could hear. It wasn't loud, but it echoed everywhere, in stations, on ships. Even on the ground, it said only one line. We warned you not to cross the void. The message repeated twice, then faded. After that, no one saw the Specter again for a long time. The Empire pretended the message never existed. Officially, they said it was interference from an old satellite. But everyone knew better. The fleets that survived the encounter were ordered to remain silent. The crew members were moved to other sectors, given new identities, new lives. But late at night, when they looked up at the stars, they couldn't help remembering the moment everything went white. They remembered how small they had felt, how powerless. And in that quiet space between fear and wonder, they all shared the same thought. Whatever the Specter was, it wasn't finished. The Empire had tried to destroy it, and failed. Now the question wasn't whether it would return. The question was when. Because deep inside every soul who had ever seen that shadow in the dark knew one truth. The Specter never appeared without reason. It watched. It waited, and when it came again, it would not come quietly. The Empire might have erased the Specter from its reports, but it couldn't erase it from the minds of the people. Word of what happened spread quietly, like whispers carried on the wind. Every ship crew, every space worker, every citizen in the outer systems had heard something. A fragment of truth, twisted and retold 1,000 times. Some said the Specter was a weapon from an ancient war. Others thought it was alive, a creature made of darkness and silence. But the one thing everyone agreed on was that it was still out there, somewhere in the cold emptiness between stars. Months passed. The Empire tried to rebuild its confidence. Lost ships were replaced, new fleets were launched, and propaganda filled every screen. The message was always the same. The Empire is strong, the unknown is under control. But deep down, no one believed it anymore. Out on the edge of the known galaxy, a small mining station floated near a dying red star. The workers there lived simple lives, cutting through rock and ice to gather rare minerals. They didn't expect to be part of anything bigger than their daily shifts. That changed one quiet night. The station's radar picked up a faint signal, just a small blip at first. The technician on duty thought it was a glitch, maybe a fragment of debris reflecting the scanner. But then the signal moved. Slowly, deliberately. It wasn't drifting. It was approaching. The technician tried to contact command, but before the message could go through, the lights in the control room flickered. The air felt heavier. The sound of the machinery grew distant. And then through the viewing window, he saw it, a dark shape moving without light or flame, sliding silently across the background of the stars. He froze, unable to speak. The Specter had returned. Within minutes, the station's communication systems went down. Every attempt to send a distress call failed. The technicians and workers ran to the escape pods, but the doors wouldn't open. The emergency lights turned red, then white, then went out completely. When the Empire finally sent rescue ships 2 days later, they found the station empty. Every person was gone. The machinery was untouched, the food still warm in the dining area. It was as if the entire crew had simply vanished into thin air. Command tried to hide it, but someone leaked the recordings from the radar logs, the faint outline of the dark shape moving across the screen. Within hours, the footage was everywhere, and with that, the silence broke. Panic spread across the systems. People started refusing to travel in deep space. Mining operations shut down. Merchant fleets stopped leaving safe zones. The Empire's economy began to collapse, one station at a time. Command tried to calm the public, releasing statements that the missing station had suffered a radiation leak. But no one bought it. The Specter's name returned to every conversation, spoken quietly, almost like a curse. Inside the Imperial Council, there was chaos. The Emperor's advisors argued endlessly. Some wanted to fight again. Others wanted to retreat and fortify the core worlds. But a few of them began asking a dangerous question. What if it's not an enemy at all? What if it's something trying to warn us? That question changed everything. A small team of scientists who had been studying the previous encounters in secret found a pattern in the Specter's appearances. It never attacked randomly. Each time it appeared, it was near a system where the Empire had been experimenting with forbidden technologies, dark energy weapons, gravitational distortions, or dimension-based travel. The Specter wasn't hunting the Empire. It was stopping them. That discovery terrified the Council. The Empire had always believed it was the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. But if the Specter could disable thousands of ships and make entire fleets disappear, then it meant something or someone was far beyond their understanding. The scientists presented their findings to the Emperor himself. They showed him energy readings from the Specter's encounters. The frequencies didn't match any known technology. In fact, they looked almost natural, like something from the fabric of the universe itself. One of the scientists, his voice trembling, said, "It's not from another empire. It's from somewhere outside our space, maybe even outside our time." The Emperor didn't respond for a long while. Then he said quietly, "If that is true, Then we were never meant to see it. Despite his words, the Empire couldn't stop. It was built on expansion, discovery, and control, and the idea of something greater than them was unbearable. So they decided to do what they always did: try to dominate it. A new mission was launched, this time led by explorers instead of soldiers. The Empire wanted to find where the Specter came from, to trace its origin. The mission was called Project Horizon. Dozens of research ships set out, equipped with the most advanced sensors ever made. They searched the regions where the Specter had last appeared, collecting data from the strange signals it left behind. Weeks passed without result. But one day, one of the ships detected something incredible. A small distortion, almost invisible, floating in space like a shimmer of heat. When they scanned it, they realized it wasn't just energy. It was a doorway. Space itself was bending there, folding into something that shouldn't exist. The lead scientist decided to send a small drone through the distortion. As soon as the drone entered, its signal vanished. But for a split second before losing contact, it sent back an image in a world of endless light, with structures that seemed to float in the air like living geometry. And then, just before the image cut off, the crew saw a shadow move across the screen. The Specter was on the other side. The crew immediately tried to pull back, but their ship started shaking violently. Systems flickered, the engines roared, and a blinding light filled the room. When the light faded, they found themselves in total darkness. The distortion was gone, and they were no longer in their original position. Their scanners showed nothing. No stars, no planets, no known coordinates. It was as if they had been pulled out of the galaxy. For days, they drifted, unable to find their way back. Then, one by one, the crew began to hear sounds through the communication lines, whispers like faint echoes of their own voices. The Specter was speaking to them, but it didn't use words. It used memories. Each member of the crew started seeing visions, moments from their past, people they had lost, mistakes they had made. It was as if the Specter was showing them something personal, something buried deep inside. Some said it felt like a warning. Others said it was trying to understand them. When the ship finally returned, or rather when it appeared again, it was discovered drifting near the border of the Empire. The crew was alive but silent. They refused to speak about what they had seen. The only thing they left behind was a single line written in the captain's log. "It's not here to destroy us. It's here because of what we've done." That sentence spread across the Empire like wildfire. People started to believe the Specter wasn't a monster or a ghost. It was something far older, something that had seen civilizations rise and fall before. And maybe, just maybe, it had come to warn them that they were next. The Emperor ordered the scientists to destroy the data from Project Horizon. Every file, every recording, every trace of what they had found was erased. He wanted no one to know what the crew had written. But secrets like that never stay buried. Within weeks, copies of the captain's log appeared on underground channels. The people read it, shared it, and soon it became something more than a report. It became a message of awakening. If the Specter was warning them, then maybe it was time to listen. Small groups of explorers began leaving the Empire's control zones, searching the stars not for conquest but for understanding. They wanted to find the truth, not for power but for peace. And far beyond the Empire's borders in the silent black between stars, the Specter watched. It didn't attack. It didn't move. It simply waited. Those who saw it again in their journeys described it not as a shadow but as a reflection, like the universe itself was looking back at them. It no longer appeared as an enemy. It appeared as a reminder that some things are not meant to be owned. Some things are meant to be respected, because every time humanity looked too far into the unknown, something out there looked back and reminded them of their place in the great silence of the cosmos. Time moved differently after the last encounter. The Empire no longer looked like the proud, unstoppable force it once was. The people had changed. The leaders had changed. And the stars themselves felt different, quieter, as if holding their breath, waiting for what would come next. The Specter hadn't been seen for months. No new signals, no vanishing ships, no strange lights in the sky. It was as if it had simply faded back into the void it came from. But even in its absence, it left behind questions no one could answer. The Emperor tried to pretend life had returned to normal. The fleets resumed their patrols. The station started working again, and the capital screens flashed with messages of strength and unity. Yet everyone knew those were just words. Deep inside, they were afraid that one day the silence would end and the Specter would return. But the return didn't happen the way anyone expected. One morning, across every communication channel, across every star system in the Empire, a signal appeared. It wasn't loud or threatening. It was soft, almost like a heartbeat. The same pulse repeated in every ship, every satellite, every planet's network. At first, people panicked, thinking it was another attack. But the scientists quickly noticed something strange. The signal wasn't interfering with their systems, it was transmitting data. When they decoded it, they found coordinates, one single point in space. Far beyond the edge of the galaxy, in the empty region no one had ever mapped. The Emperor gathered his advisors once again. Most wanted to ignore it, but a few brave voices insisted they had to go. If it wanted to destroy us, it could have done so long ago, one of them said quietly. Maybe this is our chance to understand. After a long silence, the Emperor agreed. He ordered one ship, just one, to travel to the coordinates. It would carry scientists, historians, and explorers. No weapons, no armies, just people with open minds. They named it the Dawn Light. The journey took weeks. The stars thinned out as they left the familiar parts of the galaxy behind. The void around them grew darker, colder, more still. Every day felt longer than the last. But then one evening, the crew saw something ahead. Not a star, not a planet, but a faint glowing sphere floating in the distance. As they approached, their instruments began to fail. Not from damage, but because the readings made no sense. The space around them bent like light passing through water. Time itself felt slower. When they reached the coordinates, the glow expanded into an enormous field of light. Endless, shifting, like a living ocean made of stars. And there, in the center of that sea, the Specter waited. It wasn't dark anymore. The black shape they had feared for so long was now surrounded by light. Thousands of thin, shimmering lines that pulsed gently, almost like breathing. The crew stood in silence, watching it through the viewing window. No one spoke. No one moved. It felt like being in the presence of something ancient, something that had seen the beginning of time. Then the lights inside the ship flickered, and the communication system came alive. But this time there was no static, no whisper. A clear voice filled the air. It didn't sound human, yet it was calm and steady, like an echo of thought. "You came," it said. The crew froze. The captain slowly responded, his voice shaking. "We received your signal. We don't want conflict. We just want to understand who you are." There was a pause. Then the voice said, "We were like you, once." That single sentence filled the room with silence. Everyone exchanged looks, not sure if they had heard correctly. The voice continued. "We reached beyond our stars. We built empires. We believed nothing could stop us. But we forgot the truth, that creation is not meant to be owned. We broke the balance of our world, and space itself rejected us. We became what you see now, watchers of the boundary." The captain hesitated. Why come to us?" The lights around the Specter pulsed softly. "Because you began walking the same path. You tampered with forces that do not belong to you. You opened doors that must stay closed. We came not to punish you, but to remind you." The crew listened, their hearts pounding. The captain spoke again, his voice quiet. "If we stop, if we choose peace, will you leave us alone?" The voice didn't answer right away. Then it said, "We never wished to harm. The choice is yours. Continue and lose everything. Remember and survive." Then the light around the Specter grew brighter, so bright that everyone shielded their eyes. For a moment it felt like time itself froze. When the light faded, the Specter was gone. Only the quiet pulse of the universe remained. The ship's instruments returned to normal. The crew sat in silence, realizing what had just happened. They hadn't found an enemy. They had found a warning. The captain recorded everything, the signal, the voice, the coordinates, the words. When the dawn light returned to the Empire, the data was shared with the Emperor. He listened to the recordings many times, alone in his chamber. No one knew what he thought. But the next day he gave an unexpected order. Every project involving dark energy, dimensional weapons, or gravitational control was to be stopped immediately. He announced to the Empire that the age of conquest was over. From that day forward, their focus would be on rebuilding, learning, and peace. Many didn't believe it at first. Some thought it was weakness, but slowly things began to change. Fleets that were once built for war became fleets for exploration. Ships traveled not to claim, but to understand. Scientists studied the stars with respect, not greed. And across the empire, people began to dream again, not of power, but of harmony. Decades passed. Generations were born who only knew stories of the Specter, stories told in quiet voices about a shadow that came to save them from themselves. But for the few who had seen it with their own eyes, it was more than a story. It was a reminder that there are forces in the universe that are not meant to be conquered, only respected. One evening, an old engineer who had served on the Dawn Light stood alone on a balcony, looking at the stars. He remembered the voice, the light, the silence, and for a brief moment he thought he saw something move in the sky, a soft shimmer, like a shadow wrapped in light. He smiled faintly, not with fear, but with peace, because he knew somewhere out there the Specter was still watching. Not as an enemy, but as a guardian, a keeper of balance, making sure the mistakes of the past were never repeated. And maybe, just maybe, it wasn't gone at all. Maybe it was part of everything now, in the pulse of the stars, in the rhythm of space itself. People still tell stories about it. Some call it a myth, some a warning. But those who truly listen to the silence between the stars say they can still feel it. A quiet heartbeat in the void, a reminder that the universe is alive, and that every action echoes forever. It became the Empire's greatest truth, that the most powerful thing in all creation isn't a weapon or a ship. It's understanding, because once an unknown vessel appeared out of nowhere, it vanished just as quickly, and the Empire and the proud rulers of the stars finally realized what the Specter had been trying to show them all along. They were not the masters of the universe. They were part of it, and that realization changed everything.